Guys, it's Mary Lee, the Diamond Dinosaur, coming at you from the Dino Lair. It is me, the Double D 33. It has been a very long time, I feel like, since I've actually done a WIP. Because usually my WIPs consist of football. And football season is kind of like over for most of us. Not so much for me, though. I'm patiently waiting for the combine to start, which is for all the rookies and college students to show their prowess and the things that they can do. So that is next week. And then the next thing I'll be waiting for is free agency frenzy, which starts in March. And then I'll have more to talk about then regarding football and the coaching staff and things like that. By that time, the coaching staff of the Eagles should be pretty much in place and locked in. So I figured today I would like to talk about, I've seen a lot of things coming online about the series that's going to be on Paramount called 13 Ghosts. That is one of my favorite movies as far as the horror genre goes. I never did see the first one, but the remake is awesome. So we're going to talk about some 13 Ghosts today. And I want to talk about a little bit about the kit I'm working on for you guys before I start anything. So this kit is for Diamond Painting Around the World's Heart Awareness event that's taking place. The paint along is taking place for the month of February. It is called the Dark Heart of Darkness from Colorful Cat Studio. And I purchased this kit from a neighbor's outpost several years ago. Because anything that's a black heart, definitely I have to have it to go along with the black soul that I own. My cover minder is from Patty Wax or Distracted by Diamonds. It's my Ghoul Gang. It has all my favorite female horror icons, except the nun. But that's okay. That's for another day. The pen that I'm using is from Madwood Turning. It is my moth pen with the hearts in it, which is very appropriate because my kit has moths flying around it on the canvas with the hearts. So very fitting. The putty that I'm using is from Patty Wax. It's the basic line. The fragrance is Warm Flannel. So yeah, let's get started and talk about some ghosties. So, 13 Ghosts, the premise is from, I can't remember his name, Cyrus Kritikos, built this beautiful house of glass. And again, it's been a while since I've seen the movie, so if you guys know anything about it or I say something incorrectly, I apologize, and just let me know in the comments, and I will correct myself. So anyway, it's from Cyrus Kritikos, and the middle of the house is a machine. Basically, the entire house was a machine because he just wanted it to be very powerful. And in order for him to be very powerful, he needed to collect ghosts and put these ghosts in this machine. And then once he had 13, the machine would come to life and the Eye of Hell door would open, and he would accumulate all this power. So he had 12 ghosts that were earthbound. He collected them and he put them in this machine. However, the basics of the machine, the main driving point of it, is called the Black Zodiac. So it's an inversion of our zodiac. So each one of the 13 ghosts actually has a tie to the zodiac. So the ghost in order, there are only 12 ghosts technically, so he needs a 13th ghost in order to open up the machine. Cyrus Kritikos faked his own death so his nephew and his children and their nanny would come to inherit the house, and in doing so, one of them would die, and that would be the 13th ghost. The door would open, and he would accumulate all this power. However, let's talk about the ghosts, because the ghosts are everything, and that's what makes this movie everything that it is. The first ghost is called the Firstborn. The Firstborn ghost. Let me get to it because I had this up on my tablet. So let me go a different way. Sorry, guys. It is literally one of my favorites, though. Not even gonna lie. For those of you that like ghost stories, it's a good fit, I think. Let me just find my saves. I'm sorry. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to start with the firstborn son. He represents the loss of the firstborn male, typically seen throughout Scripture. So Cyrus, ghost hunter Cyrus Criticos, decided that that was going to be one of the ghosts that he collected. So he collected this little boy. His name was Billy McMichaels, and he absolutely loved everything old school Western movies. He would get very angry at times when his parents would try to remove him from the TV. So he exhibited that. So a neighborhood boy, decided to challenge him to a cowboy and Indian type fight out. And he had Billy had a cap gun, a toy cap gun, and this neighborhood kid, he found a actual steel-tipped arrow in his father's closet and didn't think anything of it. And he ended up shooting Billy through the back of the head with the arrow, killing him instantly. So he's your first one. The next one was the torso. The torso is literally a gangster, a gambler who didn't actually pay his debts and ended up being cut to pieces by a gangster who he owed money to. So he was cut up to pieces and wrapped in cellophane and thrown in the river. So in the movie, all you see is the torso. It's just an arm and torso. There's no legs, there's no nothing, there's no head. And they do say that in the movie, I'd have to really rewatch it because I don't remember. But whenever his ghost appears, you can hear the screams of his severed head can be heard. But the head, I never saw the head inside the movie that I can remember. So he is ghost number 2. Let me just revert back to Billy, though, because I'm trying to tie them all into the Zodiac. So this information I got from slashfilm.com. So Billy, the firstborn son, he is a representative of the zodiac sign Aries, because he is stubborn, he's reckless, and he possesses a sense of youthful immaturity. So he exemplifies those negative traits of an Aries. So he represents Aries in the zodiac. And the torso, he is going to end up representing the Taurus, because as a living person, Jimmy had a desire for material things. He was greedy, he was lazy, and he had boundless rage. So that is a representation of Taurus. The next ghost, I also, on a side note, guys, I just want to say I love these 2-layer trays. I did them on an unboxing. I love them so much. I bought another set on Amazon, guys. Okay, our next ghost is the Bound Woman. She is the ghost of Susan LeGros. She was a beautiful woman, privileged teenager, so to speak, and she was a daughter of the wealthiest family in the city that she lived in, or the town. She was a member of the cheerleading. She, quote unquote, had the reputation of being a, quote unquote, heartbreaker, and which is most cheerleaders in high school queens at the time, the queen bees, so to speak. She ended up dating a boy named Chet in high school. He was the captain of the football team. And she cheated on him on prom night. She was caught cheating with another boy on prom night. And at that moment, he went into a rage. He killed her lover, and then he took off his tie and he strangled her and broke her neck. And then he proceeded to bury her at the 50-yard line of the football field. So he did go on trial and yada, yada, yada. And he was known to say, the bitch broke my heart, so I broke her neck. So fitting, I guess, the end of the day. She is the third member of the Black Zodiac, and she represents Gemini. In the fact that with her history of cheating, it's an example of an indecisive nature of Geminis and their reputation for being two-faced as a Gemini. So if you're a Gemini out there, I apologize on saying you're two-faced. That's all I'm going to say about that. The next ghost, she represents the fourth. She is called the Withered Lover. And in the movie, the last ghost that Cyrus Kritikos collects is the wife of his nephew, who he enticed to come to the house. She was trapped in a house fire. Her husband was able to get the children out, but he thought she ran out, but she did not. By the time they found her, she had burns all over the one side of her body. When they took her to the hospital, she unfortunately succumbed to her injuries and she passed away. And her ghost was collected by her uncle-in-law, we should say. And she is now part of the Black Zodiac as the Wilted Lover. She, I believe, represents Cancer because of her nurturing Mother Nature. Let me see what it says here. She is Cancer. She is the equivalent to Cancer on the Zodiac, represented by her motherly nature, motherly, intuitive, and compassionate, sensitive, and emotional nature. So she represents Cancer. The next one is the Torn Prince. The Torn Prince. He was a very gifted high school baseball player. His name was Royce Clayton. He, had big aspirations, go to college, become a major league baseball player. He's very talented. He got into it with a local greaser type kid, and I put that in quotes, greaser, that challenged him to a drag race in his really nice hot rod. And Royce had an amazing car, according to lore. Unfortunately, Johnny was not going to let him win ever, so he messed around with his brake lines and cut the brake lines. And when Royce did okay the first lap of the race, but when he rounded a bend, he couldn't brake. He was going too fast. He went over the side of the cliff. The car rolled a few times and then exploded. So, he passed away. And in the movie, he's still wearing his Letterman's jacket and carrying his baseball bat. So he actually represents Leo, which makes him self-centered, egotistical, possessive, and impatient. So that is the story of Royce Clayton. Our next ghost is the Angry Princess. Her name was Dana Newman. She was a beautiful woman in life. Considered to be by most the most beautiful woman in the world. However, Dana suffered from some type of body dysmorphia type condition or something along that lines. So she ended up getting a job and working in a plastic surgeon's office. And as payment, she received breast implants, multiple nose jobs, and a whole bunch of other needless body sculpting things to change her, because what she would see would be something different. So it's actually a very tragic and sad story for her, because people who have body dysmorphia, they just see different things differently. I'm not saying I have any type of body dysmorphia, but I do feel like I am a large person. My friends would say that I am not. But I could truthfully say that there were times in my life where I would look in the mirror and see something completely different than what was really there. So yeah, your mind sucks sometimes. It's a very powerful thing for sure. But anywho, back to Dana. Enough about me. Back to Dana. She was left alone one night working in the office, getting stuff done, and she attempted to perform surgery on herself to correct something that was completely imaginary. It didn't exist at all. And she botched herself. And then at the end, she didn't like the way she looked, so she ended up committing suicide by cutting her wrist in the bathtub. So she is what is known as the Angry Princess. So, and she represents on the Black Zodiac. Well, let me get this drilled in. I didn't want to stay. She represents Virgo on the Black Zodiac because she is was known for being overly critical, insecure overthinkers, and perfectionists to a fault. All of those things are correct with a Virgo. Speaking as a Virgo, yes, yes, and yes. I'm an overthinker. I'm a perfectionist. And yeah, exactly. So when I saw that the Angry Princess was the representation for Virgo, I really wasn't mad about it. Not even going to lie. She was a pretty cool character in the movie. Vicious too. Vicious. So the next ghost was the Pilgrimess. She's based on a real life history. She is the ghost of Isabel Smith. Isabel Smith was I believe, orphan. Let me just get this drill out of there. She was an orphan in 1675. She migrated to a small town in New England, hoping just to be able to have a better life. Unfortunately, in that time frame, in that era, small towns and colonies did not accept very well to newcomers. And because she was a newcomer, she was not accepted. And around that time, a bunch of animals in the town got sick, farm animals and everything. So the pastor, called upon her as a witch by saying, she's the one that made the animals sick, blah, 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 blah. And then he did get sick. And so once he got sick, they did say that she was a witch. And they went ahead and put her in shackles. I forget what that thing is called, where they put you, you're in the town and you're in the block. Oh my God, what is it called? Maybe it's in here. Let me see if it's in here. Oh my God, my thing just refreshed. Stockades. That's the word I'm looking for. The stockades, where townspeople threw stones at her and everything, and they spit on her, and then after a few weeks, she actually did die of starvation. So she joins her fellow ghosts in the Black Zodiac as a representative, and she. Because of the turmoil that she suffered, she was the perfect choice to join the Zodiac. So a lot of these ghosts that Cyrus Criticos picked, it's because they had some kind of tragedy in their life that killed them or pushed them to death or whichever. They had some kind of a problem. So she was picked as to join the fellow ghost on the Black Zodiac as a Libra. Because in the twisted inverse of a Libra, what a Libra truly is, it's the reverse of that. So she is found to be unreliable, impatient, emotionally detached, and vindictive. So keep in mind, the black zodiac is the inversion of the actual zodiac. So it's like the complete, I want to say the complete opposite. So again, these feelings may not, these adjectives, I guess they're using to describe what each zodiac is, may only be the partial half of it. So I know for a fact that Virgos are they're perfectionists. They're always right? But then there's another side of them that is, they're more loving, whatever. I'm not sure what that is. I don't pay attention to that. My daughter would be more in tune to that because she's all into the zodiac and stuff. So I wish she could have been here, but she is at work because she would have loved to have taken part in this WIP. So she is a Libra. The next one we have is two ghosts in one, actually. They're a pair. They are the dire mother and the great child. So the dire mother is a little person, let me say little person, who worked in a carnival. And she had relationships with the tall man, and she ended up getting pregnant, and she gave birth to a child. So her name is Margaret, and the child's name is Harold. She became the dire mother, and Harold became the giant child. Regarding Margaret, the mother, she just completely became overprotective of the son, and as he grew, she still treated him like a baby. He was a full-grown man, and he was still wearing diapers because she did everything. She fed him like a baby, so he never really got the chance to grow up to be an adult. Like, his mother fed him from the time he was at birth, and then now he's in his 20s, and he's still being fed with a spoon and a jar of baby food because that's what his mother is doing. So the townsfolk, or not the townsfolk, the people in the carnival decided to kidnap her and put her in a bag to torment Harold. But Harold went off the deep end, and by the time he found her, she had suffocated in the bag that the people kept her in. So he went ballistic and he killed everyone. The two were completely harassed constantly by the carnival workers. So when they kidnapped her and she suffocated and Harold found them, he killed all of them with an axe. All of them. And then the carnival broker ordered an angry mob to go ahead and execute Harold in retaliation. So the great child represents Scorpio, which makes him insensitive, possessive, aggressive, and vengeful, while the dire mother represents Sagittarius. On the black zodiac, she is seen as optimistic individual, and it points to her. It almost points that kind of personality hindered her perception of reality. So like a growing son that she had that she was still seeing as a baby. Sorry, I had to get a drink. So the next ghost is the hammer. The hammer is a blacksmith, a large blacksmith. This is another story. It's not directly to a living person, but his demise sounds, unfortunately, very familiar to other disgusting events that have taken place throughout American history. So he was an honest, hardworking blacksmith. He was of African American descent. In this particular town, he was one of only a few black men within the community. And he was suspected by another person in the community as theft by a local man in the town. They accused him of theft. And this man threatened to run George out of town. But George, who knew that he was not a thief and he did not do these things, he decided that he was going to make a stand and stand up for himself. And in doing so, Nathan and a bunch of his gang-related buddies, they ended up lynching George's wife and his children in retaliation of him wanting to fight back. And then George went absolutely batshit crazy, and he tracked Nathan and his friend, and he beat them to death with his sledgehammer. So after that happened, he was then caught. Once the town got word of everything that had happened and everything, George was caught, and then he was. Oh my God, why are these drills just jumping? They're not communicating with me today. Ugh. George was taken by an angry mob from the town to his blacksmith shop, where they ended up tying him to a tree and pounded railroad spikes throughout his body with his own sledgehammer. And in a final act of horrific racism, the townspeople chopped off George's hand and replaced it with his sledgehammer, which is kind of very similar to what happened to Candyman, right? Candyman doesn't have one hand, he has a hook. So kind of very similar to that. So something they're kind of tying some movies in together a little bit. So AKA George is known as the Hammer for the ghosts. He's much more malicious than any of the ghosts that Cyrus Criticus caught. And he definitely poses a huge threat to Cyrus's nephew Arthur when the ghosts are released in the house at certain times. He is the 10th member of the Zodiac, and he represents the stubborn, unforgiving, impulsive, and brutal traits found in Capricorn. So we haven't got to my favorite ghost yet, because let me tell you, when I first saw this movie, this ghost scared me to death. I loved and hated him at the same time. He was so cool looking. The backstory was very tragic, but he was the scariest one out of all of them. And you know what? How about that? He is next. So this ghost is the Jackal. He's probably the most recognizable of the ghosts from this movie. He was the child of a prostitute, and he suffered abuse, tremendous abuse. His name was Ryan Kuhn, and he ended up being a raging, misogynistic, demented. He was a misogynist, and he had a demented and insatiable lust for women. He spent his life on Earth as a sexual predator, serial sexual predator, I should say. He would attack, rape, and murder random women when he saw them walking around late at night. Or he would just grab a full-service sex worker just trying to do their work in peace and kill them too. He did recognize that he had these tendencies and that they were a severe problem, so he willingly, props to him, willingly committed himself to an insane asylum, which was known in this story as Borenwood Asylum. He committed himself there. Once he got there, the treatment that they were giving him was unsuccessful, and he slowly lost any grasp that he had on reality, and he was just diagnosed as being criminally insane. He scratched the walls of his cell so violently that he shredded off his fingernails, and the frequent clawing forced his hands into a deformed position. And then one day he attacked a nurse. They then confined him to a straitjacket, and electing to tighten it whenever he acted out. So they would just continuously tighten the straitjacket. Even though he acted out frequently, and with every tightening of the jacket, his limbs would continue to bend and contort in ways that they weren't supposed to. He eventually did gnaw through the straitjacket. And then in doing that, they forced the doctors to put a trap, to trap his head in a primitive head-like steel cage, iron cage, and keep him locked in isolated darkness in the basement of the asylum. He, over time, grew to hate any form of human contact. He would scream wildly. Anyone came near to approach him for anything. And then the asylum eventually caught fire, but instead of fleeing with the rest of the patients and workers, Ryan elected to stay within his cell and not come out, and he let the fire take over. He is said to represent Aquarius's extremism, rebellion, and lack of empathy. But it feels cruel to us. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel normal to associate the jackal with any type of zodiac sign ever, because he was just someone who was viciously evil. He was just evil in general. So even though he represents Aquarius on the Black Zodiac, take it with a grain of salt. He shouldn't be representing anything on any zodiac at all, period. However, he is still one of the most iconic and horrifying horror figures that you can see. And as a diamond painter, listen, I'm all about horror. If they ever made a diamond painting of the jackal, I would be the first one in and buying that. Listen to me right now, Eve from Akari. We need the jackal as a diamond painting in our life. Putting it out there. Our next ghost and final ghost is the Juggernaut. The Juggernaut is, his name was Horace Mahoney. They called him the Breaker. And he is the first member of the Black Zodiac that you see in 13 Ghosts. It is the opening scene of the film where Cyrus and his team are capturing his ghost from the junkyard. And they baited him with a semi-truck filled with blood. He was abandoned by his mother and raised by his father. He was teased a lot because he was just, kids are cruel, right? Let's just be real. Kids are cruel. He was very tall for his age, and he did have some disfigurements in his face, probably birth defects. But again, kids are cruel. So, he was tormented with that. His father ended up giving him a job at his local junkyard. And it was his job to chop and crush up old cars. And Horace did this for most of his teenage years. Unfortunately, his father did pass, and Horace went insane as a result of his isolation, and he became a serial killer. And go figure. That didn't have serial killer written all over it. Alert, alert, alert. Wee-oo, wee-oo, wee-oo. All right, that's what you should be looking for. Red flag, red flag. Anyhow, he would pick up hitchhikers and motorists requiring assistance, and he would bring them back to his junkyard, eventually breaking every bone in their body and ripping them apart with his bare hands, and then use their meat to feed his dogs. Oh, Horace. And just as he was about to kill his 7th victim, my screen rolled away, hold on, who was an undercover police officer, the SWAT team arrived to take him out. He did manage to strongman his way out of the handcuffs and kill 3 police officers before he was gunned down. His earthbound ghost continued to reign a reign of terror, with his body count rising to over 40 before his capture. And in the Black Zodiac, he does represent Pisces. The Juggernaut avoids taking responsibility. He is aggressive, he's a loner, and extremely sensitive, which probably explains the reason he went insane from the moment he lost the only person who cared for him, which was his dad. While the standard zodiac, remember, has 12 signs, just to give you a little bit more explanation about the film, the Black Zodiac required a 13th ghost to activate what was called the Basilius machine, which doubled as Sirius Criticus Mansion. So remember I said that the machine itself was disguised as a mansion. It is the Basilius machine is said to be designed by the devil and powered by the dead. And the machine requires 13 earthbound spirits to open the Ocularis Infernum, which is Latin for the eye of hell, which gives the owner of that machine incalculable power, which is exactly what Cyrus wanted. It is named after the 15th century astrologer, and it was hidden at the core of the house. So at the end of the movie, it is Cyrus Criticus who becomes the 13th ghost. The machine required a spirit to be sacrificed willingly out of love, in contrast to the other earthbound spirits who died in agony. So hence you have the 13th ghost. Cyrus handpicked the 13th ghost to be his nephew, Arthur. When Arthur's wife, Jean, was selected as the 4th ghost, he had automatically intended for Arthur to be the 13th. But that did not work. Cyrus's plan failed, and he was torn to pieces by most of the members of the Black Zodiac, which then freed their spirits to pass on. So there was no conventional Zodiac counterpart, blah, 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 and the rest is history. So that's what you have for the 13 Ghost. That's how the movie ended. I don't know what they're going to be doing with this show. I believe the show is pretty much going to be surrounded by the ghost. Maybe it's going to be the backstory of each one. So I can't wait to see that. I mean, a lot of this stuff about their backstories, you can find it on the DVD or Blu-ray edition because it is a part of the special features. I have it on my Blu-ray or DVD that I have of 13 Ghosts. There's like a whole segment which tells you about each ghost and how, you know, what their life was like and how they came to be so agonized and tortured and everything, and how they came to be one of the 13 ghosts. The one thing I did not know, because I initially went into this morning thinking I was going to talk about the TV show, The 13 Ghosts, and just give a little bit of information from what I had and knowledge I had from my own Blu-ray and DVD. I did not know that much about the Black Zodiac and that it was tied into the movie itself. So that was very, very telling, and I thought it was very interesting. So I figured I wanted to share that part of it with you. So yeah, guys, that's all I got for now. So kind of a longer WIP than I normally do. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a comment if you like the 13 Ghosts, if you've seen the 13 Ghosts. We can definitely talk about it in another WIP or whichever. Again, I would definitely do a diamond painting of the Jackal, without a doubt. That being said, I'm going to sign off for now so I can finish this particular section, and then I have to move over and do another, start working on another canvas for an event, a paint along I'm doing to build up some progress. So that being said, guys, I'm going to let you go. Remember that roar in dinosaur means I love you and you are awesome. And I will see you the next time, coming from the lair. Talk to you soon. Bye.